Who would be a Wolves fan, eh?
On goes Bull. People might yet win it here for Wolves. Flash in the shot. What a goal!
Good evening, and welcome to the Wolves Fancast. This is your preview show for the Premier League game, not the FA Cup game, not just yet. That'll be next week. But the Premier League game between Bournemouth and Wolves, in association with the Sports Cycle Podcast, FC Quiz.app, and the Boston Coffee Company. Joining me tonight to talk about the game, we've got Gav, Ed, and Sutty. Welcome over, Sutty. I mean, nice to have you on the Fancast. How are you enjoying Vita Pereira's reign so far as Wolves manager?
Well, evening, people. Thank you for having me on. Yeah, it's nice to have some structure. The chaos has gone, hasn't it? And we seem to have a man in charge who's instilled a bit of discipline, knows what he wants, knows the system he wants to play, and has galvanised what we know is a talented bunch of players. And there's no more effing about, as it were. The days of disharmony look like they're well and truly gone. After what I witnessed at Liverpool and against the Villa and the two cup games, and even against Forest and Newcastle, we created enough chances. And I think the Forest-Newcastle game, although it looks bad on paper, we could have feasibly got something out of both them games as well. So, yeah, it's much better. My only gripe is that the ownership and the men in charge didn't pull the trigger after the Brentford game, because I do not think we'd be where we are now.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think there was countless times where they could have changed it, and we could have been in a much better position than we are. Welcome to everyone who's tuning in tonight. Danny P, as always, welcome on. Thanks for coming on the other week. I appreciate you coming on the show recently. You're fresh out of beer. That's not good. That's not how we want to start the weekend, Danny. That's not how we want to start it. And welcome everyone else in there. Hi, Maximus Wright, as always. Neil Wyatt, North Street, all of you guys who always tune in. I appreciate you all. So this is essentially the we sacked Gary O'Neill derby, Gav. Bournemouth, they're a bit of a strange team. Obviously, it's quite traditionally a small team, small ground, but really well run. And they've done exceptionally well again this season, haven't they? And they've got a fantastically well drilled squad with some talented players, and they've done well to develop the players like Justin Kluivert and have players who can create danger in moments, and they're a real challenge, aren't they?
Yeah, I think you got to take your hats off to Iraola, really, haven't you? Because since he's come in, okay, he had a tough first 10 games or so at Bournemouth. I think the pressure really mounted up on him for the first part of his career at Bournemouth, but then he turned it around, didn't he? And Bournemouth fans were telling us about Gary O'Neill, and then we won down there last season, and we thought we had the last laugh, but it turns out Bournemouth had the last laugh in the end.
Yeah, I agree. And for somebody who, for all the good that Gary did here when he was here, and I don't want to touch too much on him, but for all the good that he did in terms of the coaching setup and developing players like he did, Iraola has done all of that work and more at Bournemouth, as you say. You look at the development of the players like Justin Kluivert, it's incredible. I'll put a little graphic for those on YouTube, but looking at those squads there, is you look at Bournemouth's squad, and as I said earlier, it's not the best players on paper, but it's really well put together, isn't it? And you think, when you look at that, everybody knows their roles, and they're all going to work together to try and come to a common cause. Who on that sort of squad do you think is the most dangerous to us, other than probably Justin Kluivert because of his hat trick of penalties?
Well, hopefully we don't give away 3 penalties this weekend and shoot ourselves in the foot. They've got a couple of. I think you're right in terms of who they've got there. They've got a bunch of players that know their roles, that they can play good football. They're comfortable on the ball, but they've got a couple of X factors. Like Semenyo obviously has had a great season and has shown over the last couple of seasons he's got that. I don't know. He's kind of like Adama Traore style type of. Every now and again he'll blaze one over. He's maybe a little bit more productive than Adama overall, but he's got that X factor about him. And of course, Evan Nilsson, who's not even on that list there, is a £45 million striker, and it's nuts when you talk about a team like Bournemouth. And in my head, growing up when I did, they're usually in League One, and you only knew them because they had a weird cherries, and you never quite understood why they were called that, rather than the Premier League outfit that they are now. But they sign really well. Kirkes is a great left back, probably team of the season left back berth is potentially his, as well as obviously the cracker against us at home, which set them on their way. He's had a great season. They're down that Brighton mould, aren't they? Of buying the right people in the right places and not playing people out of position. There's no square pegs in round holes, is there, in that squad? They all play where they're supposed to play, and they're very well drilled, and they're very well backed as well. Let's not forget their owners do plough in some money and make sure that they're propped up on the other end. But I think, to answer your question, Kluivert, Semenyo are the X factors, but obviously Atwara the last few weeks. If you haven't had him in your FPL, you've been wondering why you haven't. He's one of those players, isn't he? And he seems to be in form at the minute as well. So I'd say those three, they're sort of the attacking three. And of course, they've got without Evan Nilsson, they're relying on sort of those players to bring in the goals at the minute.
Yeah, and as you say, everyone sort of knows their roles. There's no square pegs in round holes. It's rather easy for Iraola to put a team together at the moment, and I can't say the same for Vitor Pereira, Sutty, because like we've had the injury issues. Agbadou's out now. Strand Larsen's back, so we've got the issue of does Strand Larsen come straight back into the side, and what do we do about the Agbadou situation? Does Bueno come back into the middle, or does he risk it and give Giga the start?
I don't think he will risk Giga giving the start. I think Santi will come into the middle. I think you'll have a back three of Doc, Santi, and Totti Gomez. I think he trusts them, and we've all probably slated Totti Gomez in the past, but he's given us that bit of balance, being naturally left-sided. I do think he'll bring Strand Larsen back in, but I don't think he'll play the full 90. I do foresee Manuzzi coming in, playing as a number 8, and you'll probably see Cunha and Gedge come a bit closer together, and he'll be filling in behind them as he does when he bursts into the box and makes those late runs. But I think our side is pretty much nailed on, something around that, to be honest. But if we go there and we play as we did second half at Liverpool and pressure the ball high up the pitch, and the same as we did against the Villa, non-stop, I do believe that we will win that game.
Yeah, and I think the way that we've set out and taken the game to teams is good, but the problem is, especially with like the Liverpool game, we've seen it before, haven't we? We've had to allow games to come to us and to step ourselves into a game and to have a reason. Do you think that's sort of a lack of belief and confidence, or do you think that that's something that's not quite installed into them to be able to do from the start yet?
Well, we clearly make chances. I mean, I don't think Liverpool have not registered a shot on goal in the second half of any Premier League game in Premier League history, like they did on Sunday. And that's down to us having belief that we can get back into the game. Now, look, we create chances, but it's up to us to now become ruthless. I mean, I've been quite public about Strand Larsen's last 4 or 5 games. He had chances against Forest. He definitely had 2 gilt-edged chances against Newcastle. And had he put those away, or even one of them, both games would have been completely different. So it's up to us with the gilt-edged chances that we create. We must finish them. If you don't finish them, you get what you deserve at the end of the day, don't you? And that's nothing. So we've got to be ruthless, but we seem to be getting better and better all the time. Okay, we've got a loss against Liverpool, against a record in the last, and Forest and Newcastle, but that's 3 out your top 6, and we certainly weren't outplayed. That's for certain, and we certainly weren't outdone on gilt-edged chances.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you, and I think it's no great shame in losing to the teams like those. That obviously we're getting to the point in the season where we need to start putting wins together and runs together. And I think a team like Bournemouth, in the past, traditionally would have been like that sort of game where you could fight for the 3 points. But I think it's a hell of a challenge tomorrow.
I think as well, this manager's instilled in us that there are no free hits, as we used to call them. It's a free hit. It don't matter. Every game matters now. So I think he has got us well drilled. He won't accept anybody shirking. That's for certain. And I don't think he's scared of dishing the odd bollocking out either, which is good. It's what this lot need, and they need somebody stood in that dugout who they know is going to take no crap off them. And you don't perform, you're off. Simple.
I mean, he understands that, doesn't he, Gav? That the Vita Pereira understands the pressure that we're under, the position that we're in, and we need to get points to stay in the league, because it's not only important to the club and to keep these wonderful players here, but it's important to all those fans. And that's the one thing that we need to create. And that's the sort of the last straw that we're holding on to with this false ownership, is that, okay, do they care enough to keep us in the Premier League? And that'd be the straw that broke the camel's back with anybody who's hanging on to not liking Fosun. But Vita Pereira, he's set that up exceptionally well. And I think, as Sutty said there, you've got these bunch of players, and there's no fear, is there, to challenge poor behaviour and poor performances.
Yeah, he's set a standard now, isn't he? And all the players have to meet his standard now at the end of the day. And if you don't, he's not afraid to call it out. He's already said Tommy Doyle doesn't like him in the midfield too. He's already ruled him out playing as Tommy Doyle's been a midfielder all his career, probably played in a 2 most of his career, and now he's not being told he's not good enough in a 2. So he's not afraid to tell people what he thinks. And I think the problem with Gary O'Neill, sorry to go back on Gary O'Neill, but I think he was a bit too pally with the players. And I think sometimes you can get taken advantage of, whereas Pereira now, he's not going to take no shit. And they'll listen to him at the end of the day, and that's all you want.
Yeah, and I'll come back to you for something else, Gav. Another player I want to talk about was Menezes. We saw him in the Blackburn game for a very short period of time. We played against Liverpool as well. He's a bit of an enigma, and I'm not sure what to think of him personally yet. He obviously gets into really good goal scoring chances in areas, and he gets plenty of shots on target. But I'm not quite sure yet with him. What are your thoughts on Menezes and how he started in there, and having him as sort of this, I don't want to say an X factor, but it's something different, isn't it? And how does he affect the team?
I think he's definitely something that we've missed. And I said this to someone recently. I said, when we had Lamina, Gomez, and Andre, there were 3 midfielders that did the same thing. They all won the ball back. Not exactly progressive, not exactly ball carriers. Can't exactly play, balls into the final third. So we needed something that was a bit of a maverick. Okay, the quality with him is probably not there quite yet, even though he is 28. But he's given us another option. He's given us it's another player in the box where if a chance falls and it comes to him, he might score. But if he's not there, we have no chance of scoring. So he might end up being a Dave Edwards, runs into the box, score another time, or he's going to end up being Dendoncker. And only time will tell, really.
Yeah, and I think that sort of role is important to us, because it's something that I don't think any of us realised that we'd miss until, and you mentioned Dendoncker there, but until Dendoncker left, we didn't know what we had until we'd let it go. and having sort of these different options is important. And having a squad that's able to adapt to certain situations, certain games, is important. I mean, it seems really, really stupid to say, and it's really, really simple, but it seems obvious, but it's something that we are desperately in need of, and I'm glad that he's brought him in because he does give us that different option.
Yeah.
One of the other players that is going to be missing tomorrow, sadly, is the wonderful Rodrigo Gomez, your love child, Ed. Not having him available, it's a real kick in the teeth, isn't it?
It is, and it goes to show that under I'll happily talk about Gary O'Neill all night because I can't stand the bloke. But it goes to show that we're going to miss him now. When for most of the games that we had him, he wasn't even an option off the bench. Like the short-sightedness to not use our squad that bloke had is why we're in this position we're in. It's not the amount of difficult games we had at the start of the season. It wasn't a few bad results. It wasn't a few bad VAR decisions. It was because that bloke was not making any substitutions at any point in our opening 12 to 13 games, which is why we're in the shit we're in. So that's the reason. And the fact that we're missing some Rodrigo Gomez, who's been phenomenal since he's been given the starting berth. He is given a run for your money that, if all things go well, we stay up this year, it won't be the worst case scenario that if we sell Ryan Aït-Nouri for a massive amount of money, we've got a left wing back there that can fit right back in, and we wouldn't necessarily miss him. And same with Nelson Semedo on the other side. If he doesn't sign, and I hope he does, Rodrigo Gomez steps right into that position for me, and it won't really be a drop off in quality, I don't think. And he's got such a high ceiling. He's not just a speed merchant. He's got some great deliveries, getting into the box, and I think he's the epitome of where we've changed as a team with the changing manager. Is now that the squad is being used. We've got a manager in Vitor Pereira that is desperate to manage in the Premier League, doesn't have that English arrogance tax that, I played in the Premier League and I'll get another job, it's fine. This bloke has been desperate to play in this league, to manage in this league. It's a coach's league. Managers come and take jobs like Iraola at Bournemouth. He wouldn't have heard of Bournemouth 4 or 5 years ago, and he just wouldn't have done until they made themselves known in the Premier League. This league is amazing for a reason, and it's because managers want to be here as well as the players. And I think we are missing an awful lot without Rodrigo Gomez tomorrow. Even if he was available off the bench, it's a huge miss. I think that's the biggest miss that we've got after Agbadu, of course.
Yeah, I don't think you've put Hwang in there at the moment because of his lack of form. Obviously, we're speaking a little bit there about the players who aren't available, but one man who probably felt a little bit hard done by when the Liverpool game is Bellegarde. And the last couple of games, he's really showed his qualities in sort of a midfield area and that battling and the way that he's fought in games and be able to make a difference and actually be involved for a full 90 minutes, especially in the Blackburn and the Villa game. It's quite a bit of a change for him, isn't it? Do you think that he potentially could come back into the starting fold tomorrow, or is it something where he's going to have to fight his way back from the bench again?
I don't think we'll see much difference in obviously Agbadu's not playing, but I think we'll have a very similar setup to the Liverpool game. Bellegarde came on and basically changed the tempo of the game. But let's not forget that Gary O'Neill had him playing everywhere on the pitch bar the place he should have played him. He's a centre midfielder. He had him on the wing. He's not a winger. He's no good at all. He's not out there. Total waste. But the last 3 or 4 appearances he's made, you can't knock the kid. He's been absolutely outstanding, a proper engine in the middle of the park who will burst forward. As you've said earlier, Gomez and Andre, they're basically shielding our back line, and they do a really good job of it. But Bellegarde will be unlucky tomorrow, I think. I don't think he'll start with him. But he has been outstanding for the last 4 games. And going on to young Rodrigo Gomez, what you were just speaking about, that's the kind of player that I want to see playing for Wolves with a smile. He's got that thing, very special relationship with supporters. They love him. he loves us, and you can tell that he really wants to be here. And if Semedo did go, well, I love Semedo, but if he goes, we've got the ready-made replacement already in line. And he can play left and right. And as well, we've got young Lima, and don't forget, we've got Hugo Bueno that's due back. So at fullback, we're looking pretty healthy with young lads now. So, if Eight Norrie did go, yeah, he'd be missed because he's a maverick and everybody loves a maverick. But every team now has to sell. I don't like the idea of selling our best players, but every single team has to do it. And we're no different to anyone else.
Yeah, and I think you make a good point there, talking about Hugo Bueno and Lima as well. And I think that sort of level of foresight to be able to say, okay, 4 years, maybe not even that far, 2 years in the future, to be able to have these young players who can come in and develop and replace what could leave in like an Ait Nouri or a Semedo. It's something that we haven't seen under Fosun until the recent sort of change at that sort of director of football sort of level within the club. Do you think that's one of the few positives to come out of what Fosun have done in the last few years at Wolves and having this sort of like balance?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's no. Everybody knows that I'm not a fan of Fosun. I'm certainly not a fan of Jeff Shee. That's a certain, like probably most of us now. But I haven't been a fan for the last 3 or 4 years and been very vocal about it. And everything I said has come to fruition, unfortunately. And that's why we're circling the sinkhole at the moment. I don't think we'll go down, but you've got to look on year decline of this club. And that's due to the management, unfortunately, the higher management. And some of their recruitment and sales. Look, it's better now, but I've no doubt that when this manager came in, he's asked for certain things. He got them, albeit late in the window, he got them, and he seems happy with his squad. They've done it, but we can't keep doing this season on season. Come the summer, this summer, I believe, is the most important summer we've had since we've come back in the Premier League, because we can't start like we did this year. We will sell a big one, maybe 2, but they've got to have absolute ready to go starters in place, and no, not many for the future. We've got plenty for the future. So we need to make sure we're not in this position again. I do believe we'll get out of it but we can't go through this again. It's not on.
No, I agree with you. And 2 words that I love to use on here, and I'll use a hell of a lot when I describe transfers, is evolution and revolution. And with that, Gav, what Sutty's just said about that is that the fear now is going into this summer transfer window, independent of where we are, if we're in the Premier League or in the Championship, it's going to be another window of revolution, isn't it? Because this squad can't evolve. You lose your best players again. You can't bring in top quality players. You have to bring in lower players. So you have to change the whole way that you think, because changing these players coming in, it's hard to change a style and to mold it. You have to bring in different players to develop them and what they've got existingly into what you're doing. So it's going to be another season of revolution. And that's a fear that now, if we're in the Premier League, that we have another 12 months of struggling, potentially, because we don't know how these players are going to do. And there's still a lot of fear from fans that the players that they bring in may not be good enough, or they may require more time than we have in terms of being a Premier League side.
Yeah.
But it's also the fear that the money that's being spent is being wasted. So how do we get through that, and how do we move to being like a Brighton, like a Bournemouth, where we're just evolving the squad and we're changing 1 or 2 things a season instead of looking at 3, 4, 5 players?
I think the problem that we've had for the past couple of summers is we've kept having different managers, haven't we? I mean, you would have thought when we had Gary O'Neill last year, okay, he had a good first half of a season when he was here originally, tailed off towards the end. But really, in that situation, he should have stuck with what was working, but instead he's tried to flip the whole system. And I just hope now that Pereira, he's like, all right, I've got a pre-season now. I'm gonna change everything. Feel like I want to play a different sort of way. And then with that, you've got to sign, a shit ton of players to suit that system. I think we've kept on changing managers who have different systems, and then all of a sudden, when a new manager comes in, he wants to do the same thing. So we need to settle down, in my opinion. And like you said, hopefully, if Pereira's got his eye on, hopefully, we're seeing the way Pereira wants to play now, rather than waiting until the summer, having a preseason and trying to implement it then. Hopefully, if he's implementing it now, then when it comes to the summer, you only need those 1 or 2 players to fill in. That might change, the whole outlook of the team. But I think the issue that we've got, is Cunha's gone. I think we all know that now. Probably going to sell one more. Is how many players are they going to bring in? You know what I mean? Are they going to bring in 10 players for like £4 million each, or they're going to spend it on a bit of quality? And that's what we're looking at really for the summer coming up.
Yeah, and I think looking at that, you mentioned straight away Cunha. I think we're all accepting that Cunha's going to go because of the release clause in the contract. And looking at that squad, Ed, say if João Gomez left as well, we got a really good offer for him. You're losing your 2 best players in your squad. How does Vitor Pereira react to that? And say you're in the Premier League, what does he do moving forward?
I don't know. That would break my heart if João Gomez left. I'll just tell you that for nothing.
I totally agree with you, mate. It absolutely he has a place in all of our hearts. I think he's just one of those players like Rodrigo Gomez talking about earlier. He's somebody who enjoys playing football.
I refuse to give my heart to anyone after Neves left, but then I gave it to João, and he's going to do the same again, isn't he? So I guess you've got to hope that Pereira's stubbornness will kick in, that he won't try and chop and change. That's got to be the answer, hasn't it? He's got to, like Gav was just saying, stick to his system. Hopefully, Fosun have seen over the last couple of years, the last couple of seasons, that it isn't just inevitable that we'll stay up. This isn't like it's not the NBA, it's not the NFL. Relegation is a possibility. And with that goes all of the revenue streams that they rely on. And it will require some investment. And the problem might not even be Fosun. It might just be Jeff Shee, who's desperate to, make his spreadsheets balance, right? And go back and show that, we've only spent a fiver and we've brought in, 25 quid. So he's like 500% up or whatever. That seems to be what he seems desperate to show, is that we can be this self-sustaining model is a great one to have, and we can see there's loads of teams around the world, not just Brentford and Bournemouth that do it, and Brighton, but they also have some kind of investment that props them up, that brings in the players. That the management of Cunha's contract, 62 and a bit million for that bloke who would walk into most sides, is nuts considering what we paid for him. We're not going to get much off PSR and all the. You have to be an accountant now, don't you, to enjoy football? You have to understand how the bank balances all match up. But to answer your question, my hope is that Pereira is stubborn enough to not want to leave like Lopetegui, and stubborn enough to not try and mould things stubborn enough to stand up to Fosun and not leave like Lopetegui, but more flexible than Gary O'Neill, who spent all of summer trying to play us in a back 4 and then playing a back 5.
Totally agree. I think talking about the whole Cunha contract situation, the way that it played out, it was very, very strange, because it seemed like the only way that we could keep him, was to put this clause in that he could walk away for his own set transfer fee. It's almost like Cunha set it himself, so he's guaranteed a good move. Do you think it was sensible from the club to guarantee this figure, this 62.5 million, or do you think that maybe they should have played it and then tried to hold on to him in the summer potentially, or went for more money? Or do you think the 62.5 million is a good way of guaranteeing at least we get a decent amount of revenue stream?
Well, the 62.5 million of a buyout clause, if that's the sale, as somebody triggers the buyout clause and there's only one, so say it's Liverpool or Man United, whoever, then they have to pay the 62.5 million bang up front, the lot. Now, if we have a bidding war and it goes above that, say it went to 80, 85 million, that's when other teams can pay in instalments. So depends. I think Fosun would actually like the 62.5 million all up front, rather than 10 million here, 10 million there type thing. We know he's going. He's going to go. We couldn't afford to lose him in January because he's our moment of brilliance. Let's look at the games that we have won. Somewhere in those games, he might not have been a 90-minute player, but there's been moments of brilliance. Fulham away, well, he was unplayable. But we need him now. He can't lose, can he? Because he's become the club's highest paid player. He might as well take the wage rise and jog off into the sunset in the summer because he won't stay. But it's what we do with that money. Like you say, if the unthinkable happened and João Gomez went as well, what are we doing with that money? Are we buying 4 or 5 players, which I don't actually think we need 4 or 5 players. I would rather buy 2 or 3 quality players to get us up this league where I think we should be. I think this squad, had we had the right man in charge who didn't try and just change things monumentally in a back 4 when we didn't have the personnel to play a back 4. He's trying to play wing backs as full backs. If we'd have had Vitor Pereira in the summer and we'd have started with this system, mark my words, we'd be nowhere near where we are now. We'd be halfway, at a minimum halfway.
Yeah.
So it's what they decide to do with the money. The self-sustainability route, as I've said for 2 years now, is always doomed to failure. You need 1 to 2 bad windows of self-sustainability and you're relegated. Simple as that.
Yeah, and we've seen that with clubs like Newcastle in the past, haven't we, Gav? That where you try and buy and build a squad based on what the club bring in terms of profit margins and wanting to run it like a real business. It's just not possible, is it, in football to run it that way? We as fans, we want it to be as close to that as possible because we care about the club. We want the club to survive 10, 15 years into the future. We don't want a club that's going to go through, the issues of bankruptcy or, getting points deductions because that's not good as well. But finding this happy balance, we never seem to be able to find it, have we, where we can spend sort of a little bit above our means, but not so much so that we put the history and everything the club means at risk of not surviving.
Yeah, exactly. I think what it comes down to really, if you're going to be self-sustaining, it's not a problem. I don't think any Wolves fan would mind self-sustaining. All it means is that every player that you bring in has to be a hit. And the likelihood is that every 2 or 3, you're not going to get a hit with every single player. And that's the risk you take with this sustainability model. And, we've seen it with Fabio Silva. We spent 35 million on him. Just because you spend a lot of money doesn't mean they're going to end up being good. So it's recruitment, it's scouting. The reason why Brighton does so well because they've tapped into that South American market before most of the clubs, and they brought all these players over. But I think now everyone's caught on to that now. Hence why we went for Gomez, Lima, Andre. So we've tried to do that, but you're competing against so many other clubs now. And the other thing is the academy is not exactly producing anything to even help you with sustainability there. You know what I mean? Selling a big player and having that on the books as an academy player. So, when it comes to the transfer window, it does go back to the business model at the end of the day. Yeah.
No, I agree with you. Good news for Wolves fans currently. Brentford have just scored a third against Leicester, just gone 3-0 up with a Norgard goal. Buemo and Johan Visser getting the other 2 for Brentford tonight. Thomas Frank, the football terrorist, doing us a favour. Just going to take a little break in the middle. We're going to do something a little bit different today. Little Dan has asked me to play a little short video. This is a local band by the name of the Lydens. This is their song Tongue, and they are doing a gig in April at the River Rooms in Stairbridge, and tickets are now on sale. The majority of the people in the band are Wolves fans, so check them out. If this is something that's a little bit of you, April, River Rooms in Stairbridge, get on down there, support the boys. A little video play now.
I tried. You cried.
So that was the Lydens, and that was their song Tongue. So catch them in River Rivers in Stairbridge in April. And if you want to catch them on Instagram, that's Lydens, Lydons, band on Instagram for all information about them. Okay, coming back to the Wolves game, looking at the table on the screen here, obviously we're still in the mix of it. We've got that nice little win in the last 5, Ed. Leicester, obviously playing tonight, they're not doing too well. But we've got Ipswich have got a game against Tottenham, who we just don't know what to expect. It's another really important weekend, and with the games around us, to potentially pull away and make that 2-point gap a 5-point gap, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you could argue that Arsenal at West Ham could bring them into play, but I don't think it will. I don't think we need to worry about looking up right now. Just make that gap between us and Ipswich or Leicester bigger. But yeah, it's crazy. There are no easy wins. There are no sort of free hits, as Sutty was saying earlier. But it's huge right now. I think we can only concentrate on ourselves. We need to start picking up points away from home. Like this match, we need to pick up something. We need to get a point minimum. We need to just keep going. There was a comment earlier where someone said that they weren't feeling very confident about this game tomorrow, and our season starts against Fulham. We don't have that right anymore. We don't have that. We don't have that ability to write off any games anymore. It isn't a free hit. This is super serious, and you can see the way that Vita's setting them all up. I mean, if you look at the way that we warm up now, we're doing corner routines, free kick routines. Every single minute of the time he gets with them, he's drilling something into them, because we don't have that buffer anymore. We can't just write tomorrow off as Bournemouth are doing really well. They're 5th in the league in a Champions League place at the minute. We haven't got that. We haven't got that right anymore. We need to go there tomorrow, and if we go out, at least go out swinging.
Yeah, I think as you just said, we haven't got that luxury now to pick and choose games where we try and put certain squads out and try and move it around to try and get maximised points. We're not in that position. We cannot take those chances. I mean, looking at the teams around us, obviously Leicester ain't doing too well tonight. But the biggest fear for me tomorrow is Ipswich against Tottenham. Now, Ipswich at home, you think they could potentially beat a Tottenham side who haven't been performing very well, so to say. But 3 points for Ipswich there, that could be huge and puts a hell of a lot of pressure on us, who are playing a team who are in form, like Bournemouth. It puts a hell of a lot of pressure on us to perform, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I don't see Tottenham doing us any favours tomorrow. They are very, very Spursy at the moment, aren't they? So, look, we've got to worry about us. We can't afford to go to Ipswich in April on the same number of points as Ipswich, because that will be a bad place to go. We need this 5-point gap. Let's hope Tottenham do us a favour tomorrow, but there aren't any free hits now. Every game we have got to go out to win. He said we're going to go out to win. He said last weekend, I'm not coming to Anfield to just shut up shop and see if we can get a point. I'm coming here to win. He clearly went there to win. Now, if we can play like that second half, and like we did against the Villa for the remaining 13 games, I think it is, we will stay up. I think that we have got far better squads than our 4-team division down at the bottom. there is no reason if we play in the correct manner, because he'll set us up right and have a good mindset, that we will stay up. That's all we've got to do is win our games. If we win our games, we stay up. Simple as that. And we've not got to worry about anyone else. It's quite, you can tell how bad it's got because we're reliant on Brentford beating Leicester, Southampton losing, and we all do it. We all look and think, oh, that's great, they're losing. This football club should be nowhere near where we are now.
Yeah.
And as I said earlier, we can't afford another summer transfer window. And I believe in this coach. This is the right coach at the right time. So I think he'll take us on to a lot better things next season. So we've just got to worry about ourselves and go out there and perform. And I believe if we perform, I've still got a funny feeling that we'll go down there tomorrow. I'm leaving Worcester at 10 o'clock, and I still think we'll go down there and beat them.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that there is no fear now going into any game. We've seen the quality. We've seen the level that can be produced by this football club. And we've known that. We've known that since day one. We saw that in pre-season, the way that we played against the teams out there when we played in the US. We saw the quality levels. The only reason we didn't see that consistently in the league is because Andre was brought in and Gary O'Neill didn't know how to manage him into the squad and ruin the whole setup. He didn't know how to deal with it, and having a player of that level, he didn't want to upset his newly named captain, Mario Lemina. I mean, you could write a whole book on this season.
Yeah.
And
there's been a catalyst of mistakes, hasn't there?
100%.
It's just crumbled. It's amazing we've still got a chance to get ourselves out of the shit, but we have got a chance. And as it stands at the moment, we've got the best chance because we're not in the bottom three. All we've got to do is better than the three teams below us every week, and we will stay up. But we must not let this happen again. I've got a funny feeling, and I hope I'm right, that I am his biggest critic, that the head man at Fosun will not let this go on with Jeff Shee. He's the main problem in this football club. And I think this could well be his last season. And let's hope it is. And we get somebody in that's got a bit of football know-how. It's not just about running a business. You've got to know your product. And this fucking idiot don't know the product, unfortunately. So it's like a car salesman trying to put a bleeding roof on a new house. He's not got a clue. So unless we make big change, we'll find ourselves here again next season. But as I said, we are the best positioned club out of the bottom four. That's fact. We're not in the bottom three. We're fourth from bottom. And if we keep winning our games, we stay up. It's that simple.
Yeah. I think with that being said, the sort of that position that we're in, Gav, now, that fourth from the bottom, we feel that gives a little bit of a pressure relief so that we can go into games just more focused on what we want to do and allow us to put more into the way that how we want to take on a game, whereas we're not worried about potentially a team being ahead of us being third bottom, and thinking that, okay, we must not lose. And that having that mentality sort of be dragged into the game.
I think Pereira is probably one of those coaches. I think, to be fair, a lot of coaches say the same thing, don't they? That they only worry about themselves, focus on themselves, go into every game to win the game. I think from a fan's point of view, I think we're all still a bit scared, ain't we? It's 2 points, but 2 points is nothing. If we lose and Ipswich win, we're back in the bottom three and they're a point clear. And that's how quick it can change, really. But I think for the club, I think, it's a game, like Nuno used to say, it's game by game, isn't it? You take it game by game and then see where you are at the end of the season. And hopefully, like so you just said, as long as we better everyone else with results every week, we'll be okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think there is that, and just having that sort of like close all the players off as much as possible to the outside influences and outside voices.
Yeah.
And just focus on what we want to do. If the club can do that and they can achieve that, I think we'll be all right.
Yeah.
As always, I like to talk about some betting odds, and I always open the segment by saying, if you are going to bet, make sure that when the fun stops, stop, as the saying says, as the saying goes. But looking at what's put on the screen here, Ed, I'll give you a couple of seconds just to have a look through it. But these are the sort of little Dan likes to put some together, some interesting bets that are out there. Are there any sort of on the list there for the YouTube viewers who can see it that you'd be sticking £1 on to get a decent return?
I mean, I like Marshall Manetzi to score. Is that at any time down there or last goal scorer? I wouldn't mind that coming. You know, that double that up with the Wolves to win by 1. By the way, and that's probably a decent return there. I can see him coming on when we're sort of drawing in the game and trying to change it by being that difference maker, that bursting into the box. I'm hoping it's not both teams are scoring both halves. I haven't got the nerves for that tomorrow. And I'm hoping it's not quite as dramatic as that. And is that Justin Kluivert to get another hat trick?
Yeah,
at 80-1. No, that can't happen again either. We were our own worst enemy against these. Like that's why it's difficult, I think, to put us against this Bournemouth side, because I think player for player, there's not much difference between the squads, in all honesty. But that game was just crazy. I mean, 3 penalties won by one player and put away by a different player. It's unprecedented. Well, it never happened before, had it? So it's really difficult for us to go against them. Pound for pound, I think we're probably a better squad, I would argue, in the vast majority of positions. So I'm finding this one difficult. But I would double those up to answer your question. Yep. Wolves to win by 1 with Manetzi to score last, and I don't that would be a decent return, and only bet if you can afford it, guys.
Of course. How about you, Sutty? Is there anything sort of on the screen there that you'd stick £1 on, or is there any other bet that maybe this weekend you think might be a bit of a banker?
Well, you're talking to a bloke that don't bet, but
no,
I've got a funny feeling that we'll see Bellegarde score tomorrow and we'll win by 2 goals.
Yeah, that could be a good odds. That'd probably be sort of like potentially 10-1 on any time goal scorer for Bellegarde, and then slightly long bet 10-1 by 2 goals for Wolves, I reckon. So nice little bet. How about you, Gav? I know you don't bet either, but anything that you'd fancy on there?
Like Ed said, the Manetzi one stood out for me. I think him coming off the bench and like potentially scoring a winner, it's like Kalajdzic last year, wouldn't it? It'd be exactly the same, more or less, same little scenario. So, and I think he's due a goal, and I think it will come. It'll come soon as well, because he's getting enough chances, isn't he? He's getting into the right areas.
He's a real magnet. He's a magnet for the ball, I think.
Yeah, and I think, like we touched on before, he's exactly what we missed, isn't he? He's an extra bot. I mean, I was talking to someone before, like when we played Liverpool on the weekend, when Robertson had the ball or Trent had the ball, it wasn't just Nunes that was, or Jota that was in the box on his own. There was Szoboszlai, Diaz would be in there as well. And I think Manetzi can be that player where, if we are going to throw a ball into the box, he's going to be an extra man to aim for. So I think he will get a goal. So so that one, 14-1, last scorer. I'll probably be all over that one.
Love that. That's enough of the betting sort of segment. I want to end the show sort of having a little bit of a round robin. I'll come to you first, Ed. What's your sort of predictions for the game in terms of not just the score, but let's at least one goal scorer? Who's gonna get one of the goals?
I'm hoping we go out and put the effort in that this requires. I think he'll drop Sarabia, and he'll either bring in Bellegarde or Manetzi. But I've not been his biggest fan. I mean, I've literally said I can't stand him on this podcast at least 50 times this season. But let's go for a Bellegarde goal tomorrow, playing in his real position.
I like that.
Let's go for a Bellegarde goal, and I'm gonna give him a prediction now. I think it's gonna be 2-2, and I think it's gonna be relatively comfortable draw.
Okay, I like a Desmond. Desmond sounds pretty good. How about you, Sutty? What are you thinking?
Well, again, I'll go for Bellegarde to score. I can see him coming on. Unless Sarabia's dropped for him, and I think we will win 3-1.
I'd love some of that. That'd be real nice. Yep. I think Maximus Wright agrees with you as well. 3-1. although he's gone for Munetzi to get a goal instead of Jean-Ric Novellegaard. How about you, Gav? Take us home with something in style.
Well, we've got them 2 weeks in a row, haven't we? This weekend and next weekend.
Yeah.
And I always feel like I think we'll win one of them. I don't think we'll lose both. I think we'll win one of them. But unfortunately, it'll be the one that we don't need to win, and that will be the FA Cup game. So I think we'll probably lose 2-1 tomorrow. So sorry to be a downer there for everyone.
You were supposed to bring it home and make everyone happy.
Which is why I'm bringing up that point.
I nearly went all through the show without swearing then, and you almost broke me.
I should have come on next week instead of this week then, shouldn't I? Yeah, I think we'll lose one of them. And I think it'll be this one. And then we'll win the one next week. But I'll be happy if it's the other way, to be fair.
Yeah.
I think tomorrow's more important than the FA Cup game, isn't it? I think everyone can agree.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
Yeah.
I'll bring the mood up. I'll go with you, Ed. I'm feeling a Desmond tomorrow. I think a 2-2. I think Strand Larson might get one on his comeback. A nice little header at the back post. Hopefully, we go down there, get a positive result, and can do them again in the FA Cup next week. That would make my day. Nice, good result here. Set us up for Tuesday night against Fulham.
Yeah.
Before we end the show, I just want to as we talked about in the middle of the show, with the Leydens playing their song. If you want to check them out, headline gig in April at the River Rooms in Stourbridge. Tickets on sale now. Their Instagram is Leydens Band, so that's LYDONS Band on Instagram. So with that note, I'll let the boys from the Leydens take us home.
I tried. You cried. Tonight. You left.